What's a paranormal or unexplainable experience you've had? My sister and I are very close. We kind of had to stick together, because my big brother was such a bullying turd. She is 3 years older than I am. This is way before them our fancy cell phones, internet access, etc. I was 14, into baseball, and playing in a tournament in another state. Sis had gone to the beach with her friend, and her friend's family. On Sunday afternoon, the sun was out, no clouds, great day for baseball. From nowhere, the daylight seemed like I was in a dark room with a 40-watt bulb at a far end. Don't know how, but I knew that Sis was going to be, or already had been involved in a car wreck. All I could do was sit in that dugout and keep repeating to myself over and over. Sis, get out of the car and walk. After an interval, don't know how long it was, everything returned to normal, sight-wise. Played the games for the tournament, 3rd place, damn, and it was after 1 a.m. when we pulled into the driveway. Heard the phone ringing when we were at the front door. It was my sister, panicked, anxious, but unhurt. She and her friend had gotten out of the car 1 block before a drunk driver hit the car at about 90 miles per hour, putting her friend's mother and sister in the hospital ICU. The mom died about a month later because of the wreck. Sis said they got out because she kept hearing me in her head almost screaming for her and her friend to get out of the car. I can still feel when she is down, and vice versa, but there was never anything this bad before or since. Can't explain that. I have a vivid memory of my friend showing me a giant skeletal spine in the woods when I was 6 years old. I'm talking at least 15 feet long. This was in North Carolina by a relatively big town, and it just does not make sense to me how that could have been real. My 6-year-old mind was like, oh, a dinosaur spine, neat, not realizing there's no way that could have just been there. One day during 4th grade, I didn't go outside for recess like I was supposed to. What can I say, it was hot and I was not an outdoorsy kid. I was inside, near the stairs to the 2nd floor. I started to hear music playing, and noted it was coming from the 2nd floor. I can't remember the song, but it sounded like an operatic choir of some kind. This hadn't happened before, so I went upstairs to investigate where the sound was coming from. When I get to the top of the stairs, there are 4 classrooms, the computer lab, the library, the art room, and the music room. I peek into each classroom first, no one is in any of them, and there is no evidence of a CD or cassette player. I look in the computer lab, and find nothing and no one. I go into the library, the music gets louder, but there's no one else around, and no visible music player. The art room is locked, but looking inside there doesn't seem to be anything in there that would be playing the music. I finally look in the music room, it's empty, and although the music is loudest here, there's nothing playing any music in the room. At this point I'm weirded out, and I go back downstairs and out the door. When the bell rings and I come back in with everyone, the music has stopped. I was much younger and on a church camping trip where I spent the night in a large cabin full of empty beds with the exception of 4 other occupied spaces, and we were all spaced out. Attendance was low at this retreat. I had the weirdest dream that a hairy creature was standing up outside my window peeping in and watching me sleep. This scared me, so I woke up and peeped outside my window. I was frightened beyond words upon catching a glimpse of a coyote or large dog running away from my cabin in the moonlight. Thinking about this still creeps me out. When I was 7 years old I came home from visiting my grandma and I told my mom that I could smell fire. She didn't smell anything and told me I was imagining it. Throughout the day I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a fire near me. I couldn't sleep that evening, so I went downstairs a few times where my mom was working to tell her I was worried. The 3rd time I went downstairs we heard a big explosion and went outside to check. A truck containing tinder crashed into the garden center next door and had just caused a huge fire. I was chatting with my friend on a patio one night around 11 p.m., getting ready to drive home. 1 minute we're chatting, next minute we both wake up at the exact same time around 3 a.m. Me on the couch, him on his upstairs bathroom floor, and we were both naked. Neither of us remembers anything in between. I still don't know specifically if this was real, but it comforts me. I used to have a pony that colicked while I was out of town. I had people who sent him to an animal hospital to have emergency surgery since it wasn't looking good. He had the surgery and was in recovery for a few days. I remember during a Friday night I had this strange dream that felt so real. I was in his stall with him, just grooming him, and I felt so at peace. Despite not being able to speak with him, I felt as if he was telling me he was okay and that I would be okay. I woke up feeling so at peace, but that feeling quickly slipped away when I received a call saying he had colicked again early in the morning and had passed away. I don't know what to make of it, and 3 years later it still breaks my heart, but I think he came to me to say goodbye. It may have been my subconscious trying to comfort me, but I think I'll choose to try to think about it as him saying goodbye and that it's all going to be okay. I miss you, Bubba. I was about 8 to 9 years old, playing with some Star Trek action figures in my bedroom. Yes, I was a cool kid. My room was positioned directly above a guest room which was almost never used and I almost never entered. The furniture was outdated compared to the rest of the house, and it just had a creepy vibe. This will be relevant later. I had a Spock action figure which broke apart easily. His shirt would snap into 2 pieces by pressing on the seam, and then all his limbs would fall off. He was easy to repair, so I took him apart often. He'd be used for body parts if I wanted to pretend someone had been killed by an alien. One day, just as I had set up a decidedly gruesome Star Trek scene, my mom called me down for dinner. When I came back upstairs after eating, I noticed that Spock was gone. Just him, though. All the other action figures were still in a little circle exactly as I left them. I searched that night before bed, thinking my younger brother, my only sibling, who was 2 years old at the time, may have somehow gotten into my room and moved my stuff. It had never happened before, but it was all I could think of. The whole family was at dinner and there was no chance for anyone to go upstairs and move anything. The next morning, I searched the house for Spock. Nothing. Not put away, not in my brother's room, not in the living room. It was baffling. As a last-ditch effort, I decided to check the guest room. The room looked untouched, as usual. Except for one thing, a dismantled Spock action figure, in the exact same position as I had left it in my room the night prior, directly below where I had been playing with him in my bedroom. I asked my mom and dad. They claimed to know nothing about it. My younger brother could not have made it down the stairs, and also would not have been able to make the same Spock pile that I had made the previous night. It was as if my toy had just translated a few feet in the Z direction, right through the floor. I still don't have an explanation. When my dad was doing chemo and not doing well, he specifically requested to play Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones at his wake. He didn't want people to be sad and wanted them to be reminded of who he was. His wake sucked. A lot of his friends were really shocked. It was a lot of explaining of what happened, very draining. I lost track of everything and never got to play it. The very next day, his funeral procession to the crematory to go pick him up, then to the cemetery to pop him in the wall, then a bereavement lunch. I planned to play the song at the cemetery. We drove his car those 2 days, being that he left it to me, and he left Q104.3 on the radio all the time, classic rock. All of a sudden I hear the first riff to Satisfaction. That man said, "I'll do it myself." Had a dream I was meeting my then BF's father at a cafe. I told him I was sad we didn't get to know each other before he passed away, and he said, "Well, let's get to know each other now." I knew in the dream that it wasn't a dream, and I asked him, "How will I prove this to my BF?" He said, "He will know BC fire alarm." And then we chatted forever. I woke up right before my alarm went off at 9:55. I was a server and got to sleep in. My then BF had an office job and was already at work by 9 a.m. I go about my day and forget about the dream. When we are both off later that day, we are sitting in his car and I remembered to tell him about his dad in my dream and how he would know it was real BC, the fire alarm. My BF started crying and was really shaken up and said they had a fire drill that morning at 10 a.m. in the office. I even had him call his co-worker and ask about it in a non-leading way. BC, I thought he was messing with me. We are not religious, but it was nice to think his dad was checking in on him after having some health issues recently. I'm sure this can be explained in some way, but I think like 3 rhymes throughout my life I've woken up and saw myself looking at me. Like, I'm still in my body and in bed, but this person that looks like me but with gray tinted skin is just looking at me. Then I become fully awake and aware and they're not there. It's not a scary experience either, it's just weird. Edit. I realize this could have been sleep paralysis, but every time I've had sleep paralysis I couldn't move and felt dread. In this mentioned incident I could move and didn't feel scared. That's why it sticks out for me. When I was young, like 5 years old, I was sleeping in my bed when I woke up to a hard as FK slap to the face. I instantly shot up and looked around the room. No one could have gone under my bed because there was no under the bed, and no one could have hid in the closet because there was no doors. Till this day I have no idea what had happened. I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. So I'm a skeptical person when it comes to paranormal stuff. I can't always find logical explanations to most things that happen. I believe 15 out of 10 times when people report seeing things it's just a case of apophenia. Anyway, this happened when I was about 10 years old. My dad had taken my brother, a couple friends, and me off-road go-karting in a small rural town in northern Mexico, about 40 miles south from where we lived. On our way back late at night, we came up to a red light at an intersection. On the opposite corner there was a cemetery on the left side of the road. While we were waiting at the red light, there was another car directly in front of us with their lights on. I remind you, this was late and dark in a rural town with dirt roads, also waiting, and another car who had the green light passed from right to left, lifting up a cloud of dirt. In that cloud of dirt that was left, with the car that was in front of us with his lights on, you could clearly see the silhouettes of what appeared to be an adult and 2 kids walking across the street in the opposite direction of the cemetery. The crazy thing about this is that all 6 of us in the car saw it happened. To this day I can't explain what happened or how it happened. I've asked my dad 18 years later if he remembers, and he does, but he also can't explain what it was.